Hello and welcome to When Grooms Get Engaged, the podcast about a guy's perspective to wedding planning from two guys that just survived their own. I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris. And each week we will talk about how we navigated a different part of the wedding planning journey, what we learned in the process, and what maybe we had wished we had done differently. Steve, what are we talking about this week?
Chris, this week we are talking about not the engagement ring, the wedding band.
Ooh.
Chris, we may have talked about the engagement before, but we never touched on the wedding band because they are two very different things and both very important.
As you learned.
So I learned longest time before I even started this. I'm like, why do I buy more rings? What's going on here? I thought I'd just buy one and call it a day. But no, there is another ring that you need to buy for both you and your fiance.
Yep. Two more rings you got to think about. So yeah, one for your fiance and one for yourself. A lot of different choices to look at. So we'll dive in. Where do you want to start?
We're only going to be talking about the guy's ring here because presumably at this point you've proposed to your fiance, she said yes, and she'll probably be off to the races picking her own, wedding band. So that she's well ahead of you on it. She probably knows all these things. You probably don't, which is where we kind of come in. So we're going to kind of talk about some of the decisions that you're going to have to make. And Chris, one of the first ones and one of the big ones, because this has the most options, is the type of metal for your wedding band. And Chris, there are a lot of options for the type of metal for your wedding band.
Yeah, start off, gold is probably the most traditional that you'll see a lot. Retains a lot of different, retains values, but is also the most conservative, right? Like I think most guys have either a gold, like yellow gold, and that's also another difference is the color. Yellow gold or white gold will be your first two choices there. And now what's becoming more and more popular too is a third choice, which is rose gold, which I always found interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts with just the colors of gold to start with?
Yeah, gold is, like you said, it's classic. It's, it will never be out of place. It will never be out of style. So like if you care about something like, being conservative, gold is the way to go. Gold has a lot of benefits. You can, change its color. You have white gold, you have rose gold, you have, standard gold. It's very easy to resize, which is also very important because, as we get older, as we enjoy the marriage life, we might, get a little bigger, a little rounder, in our fingers as well.
Speak for yourself.
I mean, right now, Chris, I definitely am. But gold is easy to resize. So if that does happen, most any jeweler will be able to resize the gold for you. But Chris, it's important to know when you're getting a gold ring, the carat of the gold ring and why you may not want to go pure 24 karat gold.
Yeah, so just to start off with, I think we talked about this before, but generally starting off with 10K, which is like the lowest amount of gold, but it will be a little bit sturdier. Then up to 14 carat, which is going to obviously have more gold in it, but a little bit less sturdy. Then 18 carat, and then finally 24 carat. So you actually don't see 24 carat anything in America traditionally, just because it is so soft, it's so malleable. Like you can still, like, if it's a necklace even, like it can come apart because the gold is so soft. So you generally won't even see 24 karat as an option. Traditionally, most likely you're going to see 14 karat or 18 karat available at your jewelry store.
Yeah, and if you want, generally the more carats it is, the more expensive it's going to be. The fewer carats it is, the more other metals are in there to kind of make up the difference. And that's also where you kind of get some potential allergen issues with it. Since it is an alloy, depending on, what your skin is allergic to or reacts to, you might want to just be careful getting a 10 karat gold ring because it might react to your skin. So just kind of be aware of that.
Yeah, I just think jumping in there really quick, just like personal opinion. Again, I know cost can always be a limiting factor, but I think you can find some very reasonably priced basic wedding bands that are 14 karat, and you really shouldn't really go under that. So do 14 karat if you're looking for, if you're super sensitive to cost. Otherwise, look for the 18 karat if you're looking for something a little bit more special.
Yeah, and in terms of cost, Chris, like you mentioned, like a basic band, 14 karat gold, usually they're about 5 millimeters thick. You're looking at, 800-ish, right? On the low end to maybe like 1200. And then gold rings, realistically, like averages, like you're looking from 1,000 to 2,000, depending on like what you do with them, like how many carats you go up. And the good part about it is that with gold, you're not going to really lose value if for whatever reason you need to pawn it, right? Um, which is nice. And like we said, it is classic. It's traditional. But at the same time, that's also kind of one of the cons. Could be boring. Maybe you want something flashier. Maybe you want something showier. Maybe you want something unique. Gold is probably not your first choice for that. Chris, besides gold, there is another precious metal that you can kind of pick, and that would be platinum.
One thing I just do want to touch on too is not only are we going to be talking about the metals, but you did bring up a good point before, is that another consideration is how thick the band is going to be, right? So you're going to see different millimeter thickness. So you can have like a thicker band or a smaller band, and obviously that's going to affect the price of whatever metal and band you choose. So just kind of keep that in mind. The next one we will talk about is platinum, which is also probably a very popular metal for a lot of guys. It is stronger than gold, so you don't have to worry about that malleability, and usually is kind of in a white color or white silver color. Very hypoallergenic, which is definitely a pro. Very strong, very durable. It's going to last forever, but it can be even twice as expensive as gold because it is even more of a precious metal than gold. So just think about that. It's going to be harder to change it or resize it once you go down the platinum route.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna bring up, harder to change and resize a lot, and I think people need to understand how big of a deal that could be, because even just normal day-to-day life, your fingers, as you're eating, as you're drinking water, as you're eating salt, your skin will just kind of absorb all that liquid and your fingers will swell up.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on the type of material you have in your ring, how much give it may or may not have, that could start getting uncomfortable. It could be stuck in your finger. And with a ring like platinum, it is harder to resize. Realistically, you're probably not going to resize it. It's harder to get engravings in it, because of that same reason. But the benefit is that it's very sturdy, right? It's very durable. It's also heavy. So if you like a heavier feel around your finger, that's something that you also might want to look at. But Chris, like you mentioned, it is very expensive. It's, I think, the most expensive metal for rings, I want to say, or up there with 24 karat gold, which no one's going to make anyway.
Yeah, it's on the high end. Yeah, for sure.
But if you want a cheaper alternative to platinum, Chris, you can do sterling silver, which is quite a bit cheaper. From a distance, it looks like platinum because they both have that metallic sheen, that whitish color. The cons is that silver tarnishes very easily, right? But just buy another ring at that point because there's so much cheaper.
Yeah. It's a lot more upkeep, I would say, with silver. Yeah. So it can look very cool. It can be cool to be different and use silver, I guess, if that's something that's interesting to you. But it's just going to, as you said, tarnish, and it's just going to be a lot more upkeep. So just keep that in mind because it might look kind of cloudy and not as good as when you first buy it as you continue to wear it.
But Chris, these are your traditional metals for wedding bands. Actually, honestly, silver and gold are your traditional metals. Even platinum is a little bit newer, kind of being popular in the last decade or so. But beyond that, I was actually looking up, there's a lot of random metals that they make rings out of these days. One of the first ones that showed up was titanium. And titanium is, if you like everything about platinum, but you don't like the price, you go with titanium, essentially. It's very strong. It's practically indestructible. It's incredibly durable. It's half the cost of titanium, potentially even cheaper than that. But Chris, the one thing that I saw and everything that I looked is that you need special tools to cut it. So let's say you're in an accident or something, or for whatever reason I get the ring off, you're not cutting it with your basic cutters. You need very special, specific tools to cut this thing. So it's impossible to resize. You're not engraving it. It's you're not doing much with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Jimmy Fallon had one of these rings, but I don't know. There was a story a year or two ago where he had an accident, maybe tripped over something, and his ring got caught, I think, in his kitchen, and he almost lost his finger because the ring was caught and he couldn't get it out, and he couldn't detach the ring, and had to call the fire department in, and they had to do a whole big thing. So just be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely a very cool and interesting looking metal, along with the next one that we'll talk about is tungsten as well. These are all kind of similar veins. You can find all sorts of different colors and cool tones with them. And a lot of these rings will also come in two tones or have a slightly different beveled edge to make them more interesting. So when you get into these kind of metals, you can find some really cool, funky designs that might speak more to you than just a simple gold band.
Yeah, and it's not just metals, right? Yes, tungsten's a metal. You can have cobalt chrome, which is like very shiny, very vibrant. But you can also have carbon fiber, which looks kind of cool. If
Yeah.
anyone knows what carbon fiber is, like it's used a lot in cars. It's supposed to be very, very strong, but
For all the
light.
F1 racers out there.
F1 racers, yeah. And it's like it's like woven around itself. So you see the actual weave and the texture in the ring, which is kind of cool. They're very strong, but they're also very light. And usually they're going to come in one color. You're not going to change the color of these guys. They're reasonably expensive though. They're not cheap, but they are unique. They are different.
Yeah, and if one was to be more expensive than platinum, it's probably that carbon fiber one.
Yeah. Chris, I also saw people are getting wood rings.
That's interesting to me. I don't know if I've seen that in the wild at a store.
I think Gabe has a wood ring.
Yeah,
We got
maybe.
I
Like,
think
that's
that's what he
interesting.
has. Yeah. Or if you are just, very non-materialistic, non for this world, you can get a silicon ring. Those are like 15, $20,
Not even that.
Not even, yeah.
So when Catherine and I go on, when we're traveling, we don't want to bring our expensive rings.
Mhm.
And also usually we're more active on our vacation. So we'll just wear silicone rings and, hit the gym today. So I'm wearing my silicone ring
nice.
today instead of my normal band, just because, obviously I don't want to damage it, lifting weights or running and getting it all sweaty and stuff. So definitely something good just to have in your back pocket. And you can get them on Amazon in all sorts of different cool colors. And I think it was like 10 or $12 for like a package of them.
Yeah. Very
So
cheap.
very inexpensive, and you can lose them and like kind of feel okay about it.
The other thing actually I want to bring up is Amazon will have, if let's say your wife's engagement ring or your wedding band or her wedding band is like a common style, you can find duplicates on Amazon that are close enough that look like that. Obviously it's not a real diamond, it'll be like 20, $30. But if you just need to go somewhere, you're not comfortable, wearing your actual jewelry. Let's say you're in a sketchy like part of the world and you don't want to walk around with this, $10,000 rock or whatever the case may be, go on Amazon, just buy a duplicate. Like it serves the purpose for that moment, which is nice to have.
Yeah, just don't confuse the two
Yeah.
because they can look eerily similar.
Especially if they're both like cleaned and washed at the right time.
But yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, for like engagement rings too. Like, yeah, exactly as you said. Like, you can find a pretty close match probably on Amazon, and it's just a great idea whenever you're traveling, just in case.
Yeah. But Chris, once you figure out the metal that you want for your ring, and guys, you're gonna go into a ring store and they're gonna like give you this book or this iPad or whatever and show you everything, and you're like, oh, fucking no, you're just gonna be there scrolling, analysis paralysis. After you made that decision, you got to decide on the actual design of your wedding band. So we're just going to kind of go through a couple of options, a couple of the more like traditional classic options, but just know that depending on your jeweler, how comfortable they are with everything, sky's the limit. Oh, they can probably design you something, but we're just gonna kind of do some of the basics. So Chris, start from the beginning. You have like your domed band. This is your traditional. This is what everyone knows. Soft edges, rounded edges, very comfortable. This is probably what your dad has, honestly, right? Or like your grandfather.
Exactly.
This is kind of like what's always been done for rings.
Yeah. Other parts or other options you have are beveled edges. So you can do different designs where there's different colors or even different metals on the ring along the outer edges. So that's kind of what I have in mind, where I tried to do platinum. I wanted to do platinum, but I ended up having to do 18 karat gold just for the options that I wanted. But it has like a black
were they
band
not able to like do anything with the platinum, like engrave in it or cut into it or anything? Yeah.
Yeah. So just the option and the style that they had, the one that I like really fell in love with was only an 18 karat. So mine has two tones. So there's like the middle part of the band is one color and then the outer edges are a different color, which I just thought was like an interesting thing to do with a wedding band. I really hated just the simple yellow gold wedding band that guys wear. I don't know, for some reason, again, it's just like because everyone does it, I just wanted to do something different. So that's the option I did.
That's fair. But yeah, Chris, you mentioned beveled edges. You can do a different material. You can also do different finishes. So you can have like a matte finish. You can have a glossy finish. I know matte finishes are kind of in right now. I've noticed quite a few rings with them. I think part of it is because having a glossy finish looks good, but maintaining it, like your ring just gets dirty and scuffy and just I'm always hitting mine on something. So it's like just pre-mat it. It's gonna get there anyway eventually.
You also have options for like smooth edges, as you might imagine.
Mhm.
So it's like not as rounded. And then also another option I want to talk about is like you can add diamonds or
Mhm.
gemstones to your own ring as well. And so that was something that I was kind of interested in when I saw a couple designs. So initially I liked there was a wedding band. It had a small square or rectangle gemstone, but it was flat with the band, right? So it was just engraved into the band. So there
So
was
was it
no
like
like,
sticking out kind
it was
of?
not
Yeah.
raised, right? Yeah. So it was just in there and added like a little difference. So like, it was like either like white gold or platinum
Mhm.
with like maybe like a blue or a green gemstone, that I thought was kind of cool. Tried it on, didn't love it as much because I wanted the gemstone to be like just slightly bigger.
Mhm.
But ended up going with, for mine, a series of black pave diamonds along the edges. So on one side of the ring, kind of offset, not directly in the center, I have black pave diamonds going around, which, I wanted a little bling. I wanted something to stand out, just a little bit of sparkle,
Just
just
a
a
bit.
little bit, but definitely in like, kind of a very manly way because, it's like black diamonds. So like everything's like black. So it's cool.
Yeah. But Chris, that's a good point. Bringing up the diamonds, you can have your own bling, and it doesn't have to be diamonds. It can be any gemstone. It could be really anything you can have engraved in there if you want.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that you can also have engravings on the ring. Well, depends on the metal, right? Gold, easiest metal to have engravings on. Like carbon fiber, you're not doing it. Platinum, you're not doing it. But like, let's say you want to put in like your wedding date, you can get that engraved. Let's say you want to put in like, your wife's name, you can get that engraved. If you have kids, whatever the case may be, you can also add custom engravings to some of these rings, which is nice to do.
Yeah, definitely. You can get very, very interesting things done to your ring to kind of customize. You just have to talk to your shop to see what can be
Mm-hmm.
done. And then also, I want to talk about if you do buy from a traditional jewelry place, like a nationally recognized place, generally there will also be options for you to buy either insurance through them or different like lifetime packages for like a one-time fee, and then you get X number of cleanings a year for the rest of your life. And also, you can also get resizes in that ring done with that package. So just kind of look at that or ask about that as you're looking at rings and see if they have any packages that might be interesting for you so that you can kind of cover all your bases just in case, 10, 15 years later down the road, you need to get something done with it.
I mean, 10, 15 years later down the road, presumably you would have resized the ring at some point before that if you had to. But then you also have to ask, like, how much does your ring cost? Your ring will not be as expensive as your wife's. It will be much simpler. But yeah, see what the cost is. It might make sense for you. It doesn't hurt to ask.
If we just kind of make all things equal, what would you say is like the average price guys should be thinking about spending on their ring?
I think it's hard because all the metals prices are all over the place, right? If you're going with a gold ring, 14 carats, just like a simple dome, like $900, a thousand
Yep.
dollars from like a
Yep.
reputable vendor. But the thing is, that's like 5 millimeters. Let's say you're a bigger guy, you want a thicker ring, 6, 7. Well, I don't know if 7 is even a thing, but like 5.5, 6 millimeters, like that's more material. That's going to add cost. Let's say you want to go up to 18 carats gold, baller. That's going to add another $400 or $500 to it. I think if you're planning on sticking with gold, 1 to 2,000, depending on the style. I know my ring was rose gold, and see if I can show it. It's not really gonna.
Not going to focus.
No, it's not gonna focus. Either way, it was rose gold, and like it was still like $1,400, right? I think I don't remember the exact price, but like in that ballpark. But let's say you go to platinum, you're looking at 2,000, 2,500 maybe.
Yeah. And yeah, I would say in that ballpark too. Again, if you go simpler side of things, I think that 800, 900,
Mhm.
you can go as low as that. And then you can go crazy, but
You can go crazy.
2000 to 2500 is kind of maybe the upper end, unless you're trying to do something really exotic or add more gemstones
Mhm.
or do more exotic metals. So I think in kind of that ballpark, 800 to 2500 is kind of probably safe to budget for. Just depending on how simple or complex you want to get with it. And you brought up the rose gold too, because I thought those were always interesting on the site too. Then I tried it on my skin and I was like, this doesn't look right.
Oh, really?
So I think the other advice is to like try a different couple styles, try a different couple colors for
Mhm.
yourself so that you can see what really looks good on you and your skin and what you feel comfortable. I mean, you're gonna have to look at it for forever. So get comfortable with it and make sure it's something you really enjoy.
The other thing I'll add is when you're there, they will measure your fingers. Just know one finger isn't always the same as the other finger. If it, like, let's say you're planning on wearing it on the left finger, which is I am, and for whatever reason you get measured on the right finger, my right finger is a good half size bigger than my left finger. Like, I can't fit my ring on my right finger without it getting stuck.
Too many sports injuries.
Maybe. Who the hell knows? I have no idea. But like when I was getting married in the church, they put the ring on your right finger. And like I literally couldn't get it off the next day just because it was like so like my right finger's fatter than my left finger. Like it was stuck. It's terrible. Just something to be aware of, but you are going to need to figure out what your actual ring size is, which the jeweler will be the first thing to do.
Yeah,
they'll help you out with that. But no, these are just some things to think about with the actual wedding band. And in general, the wedding bands are very important. You'll both have them in almost any kind of wedding ceremony, right? Religious, non-religious, whatever. There will be some words on the rings. And these are the rings that they are specifically talking about. This is the ring that you'll be wearing all day. This is the ring they're going to be using to swat away all the thirsty girls everywhere. You got to let them know. They're like, I'm taken, back off. So make sure you buy something you like. Make sure you buy something that, you enjoy wearing that's not uncomfortable, because as guys, it's possible that we might look at something and it's too bulky. It's hard to wear. It like encroaches on your actual like movement in your finger. So just be aware of that. Like, just because something is like big doesn't mean something that you want. Like, see if it fits, see if it's comfortable.
Yeah, and exactly. And also think about what kind of job you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you might not want to spend. I mean, you can spend $3,000-$4,000 on this ring too if you wanted to, but if you're kind of doing more things with your hands and you need more dexterity, you might be wearing your silicone ring more than the actual band. So just think about that with your investment as well. Like what is your day-to-day lifestyle? What do you do for work? Can also be a factor into this decision.
Yeah, because this is probably the first major piece of jewelry you have besides like a watch or some kind of chain. So maybe you're not used to it. Another thing to think about is, Chris, like mentioned, like, what do you work? Like, is this ring going to get in the way of work? Do you work with electricity? Is it conductive to something? Like, is that something you have to worry about? Maybe not. Could you get caught in something? Just things to think about. But this is something you have to buy. Make sure you put in your budget. And a lot of the same timeframes that we talked about for the engagement ring will probably apply here. They're not as complicated, and a lot of jewelers will have the basics ones in stock in a lot of the basic sizes, right? I know my finger was a size 10, which is a common size, so like I was able to just get it there same day. But like if you had to order it 2 weeks, right, you probably get whatever ring you need.
Yeah, I think it's like a 2-week lead time, but you probably want it well in advance of the wedding than that. So I would say probably around 60 days is when you want to start really thinking about it and maybe trying to purchase it in and around that. So you might be able to look a little earlier, but that's kind of when you should start really looking into it and making a decision semi soon.
Well, it's probably because you've never looked into it before.
Yeah.
You're going in blind,
And then just another thing that you said is like, yeah, that's also a point you might want to factor in is like, do you wear any other jewelry, right? Are you wearing a watch on the regular? Do you wear chains or anything like that? You might want something that kind of meshes with your style as well. So just think about that in your day-to-day life.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I think that about covers it on the wedding band. Just small reminder, it's not the engagement ring. You have to buy that, and then you have to buy the wedding band, and then you're good. And then you're done with your jewelry budget. Well, I don't know what your wife is planning on buying for, necklace, earrings. That's a different conversation.
That's a different conversation, yeah.
We can't help with that, so good luck on that one.
And yeah, don't forget to budget for that future upgrade that your wife is going to want.
That she deserves, Chris. She deserves. Well,
awesome.
Chris, thanks for hanging out. Everyone, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, like and subscribe. Chris, I'll see you next week.
See you next week.